All right, so in previous lessons, we managed to get our code to recognize the Pokemon card and to be able to render a 3D model of the Eevee Pokemon on top of the card so that it's standing on the card. Now, in this lesson, it's mostly a challenge for you because I want to be able to have, say, two cards side by side. Say, my Pokemon is battling somebody else's Pokemon, and I want it such that when two players, when they're both revealing their Pokemons, the 3D model should appear on top of each card. So the card that I'm going to be working with is the Oddish card. And the first thing we need to do is we need to add the Oddish card image to our project. So if you have your own Pokemon cards and you want to work with a different model, that's perfectly fine. Or if you want to use another card that you have lying around, a playing card, a business card, that's also fine. But you need to add that into your project. Now, if you want to work along with me, then just head over to this website here and print out the Oddish card so that you can follow along with the tutorial as well. So here I've saved an image of the Oddish card and I'm simply going to rename it Oddish-card, and I'm going to drag this into my project under my assets. So notice that we've got our Pokemon cards folder already, and all I need to do is open my downloads folder and drag my Oddish card into my Pokemon cards group. So again, we get a warning, and that's because we haven't provided a physical dimension to it. So let's tap that in, 0.065, hit enter so the height gets calculated automatically. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to switch out my Eevee card as well, just so that it's a little bit more clear and it works a little better, just because it has much higher resolution and a better clarity than what I can get from taking a photo of it. And I'm just going to drag that new card back in and delete the old one as well. And of course, update my dimensions to 0.065. So that means if you have images that are high resolution, that are already digital, then perfect, upload those. If you don't, and you want a particular card to be recognized, then using the camera or using a scanner will work just as well. So now that we have both cards incorporated to our Pokemon cards set, the next challenge is to incorporate the Oddish 3D model. So we're going to do exactly the same. You're going to download it from Rose Studios, and you can just Command F to find Oddish and download the file, use the Oddish model and convert it to USDZ and include it into your project. So pause the video and give that a go. All right, so this should be incredibly easy as we did it before. So we're just going to agree to the terms and conditions. We're going to unzip the Oddish folder. And here we have all of those different types and different file formats, but we're going to use the one that is just called oddish.obj as we did before. And then we're going to pull up terminal, and I'm going to use Xcode command line run USDZ_converter, and then I have a space, and then I drag in the file I want to convert, and then after a space I add the location that I want to place my converted file, and that's just going to be called oddish.usdz in my downloads folder. And there you have it. There's our new Oddish model. So now that we have that model, we can drag it into our art.scn assets folder, and we can now convert it to a SceneKit scene format. And it does that for a little while, and now we have oddish.scn, and there you go, there's little Oddish. As we did previously, we're going to simplify our nodes by flattening them into one, just so that we don't have the eyes and the mouth and the body all separate. And we're going to rename this node to Oddish. And at the moment, again, it's a little bit too big, so we're going to scale it down by the same scale format, so 0.05 on the height, width, and the depth. And now this Oddish is about the same size as our Eevee, which is the perfect size for rendering onto the card. All right, so now that we've got two 3D models and both Pokemon cards into our project, the next step is to figure out how can we know whether if the Oddish card was detected or whether if the Eevee card was detected. How can we differentiate that? Well, you can see the anchor here is the item that triggered this function. So it's the thing that got detected using the mode of detection that we chose here, which is image tracking. So the anchor is then the image that was recognized and detected. If we make sure that the image anchor is indeed an AR image anchor, then we should be able to tap into some of its properties. Now, what kind of properties does it have? If you hold down Option and you click on AR Image Anchor, then you can see this brief description about what it is. But if you want to read more, we can click on Open Developer Documentation, and this takes us to the AR Image Anchor docs. Now, it says that when you run a world tracking AR session and specify AR reference image object. Now, you might be wondering, we're not running a world tracking AR session actually. We're running a AR image tracking configuration. But if you actually change this to AR world tracking configuration, this image tracking also works. So you can now detect planes as well as images. All you have to do is change this configuration. Instead of tracking images, you change it to detection images, and it'll work exactly the same. But now you're able to detect planes in the world tracking as well as images. So you can do both. But if you only need one, then try to keep it to image tracking so that it's less resource intensive. So an AR image anchor contains AR reference image objects. So if we look inside the AR reference image object, you can see that it has a number of properties. For example, the name property, which is a descriptive name for the image which was recognized in the AR session. So that means that if we print the image anchor dot reference image dot name, then we can figure out which card was detected when this function was called. So now if I flip over this card, which is Eevee, you can see that in my debug console, I've got the Eevee-card, which remember is the name of that card over here. And that is what it's printing here. Now, if I turn over the Oddish card, then you can see I've got the Oddish card being printed over here, and that refers to this one being detected. So at the moment, an Eevee is being rendered on both cards, and we're only getting one card recognized at one time. So let's try and change that. Let's head back to our view controller, and we can be pretty certain that we can access the image that was detected through using the image anchor .referenceImage.name. So let's go ahead and delete this print statement. Now, if you scroll up to our view will appear, you can see that at one point we set the maximum number of tracked images in our configuration to 1. And that's why at any moment in time, we're only tracking one image and we're only able to render our 3D model onto one image. So let's raise that number to 2 so that we can simultaneously track and render for 2 images. Now, down here, when we render our Poke Scene, at the moment, it only renders Eevee.scn, but we want to be able to render the Oddish.scn as well as Eevee, depending on which cards and which images were detected. So as a challenge, can you modify this code so that when the Oddish card is detected, so we only have Oddish on the table, then we should only see the Oddish model rendered. But when we have Eevee on the table as well, then we should be able to see both models rendered onto the correct card. So pause the video and see if you can complete this challenge. All right, so how did that go? Let's say that if imageanchor.referenceimage.name is equal to ev-card, and remember, this is the name that we had printed in our debug console, and it also refers to the name of the card over here. And again, make sure you don't have any typos there. So if the card that was recognized was the Eevee card, then in that case, we should be rendering a PokeScene with the ev.scn, and we should be rendering that onto the card. Now, at the same time, if the image anchor reference image name was Oddish-card, so the app saw the Oddish card, then we should be rendering the oddish.scn file or the Oddish scene, and we should be adding that node to our plane node. So now let's just briefly review our code. This delegate method gets triggered whenever any of the images in the group that's Pokemon cards gets detected. And that is because we added all of those groups over here so that our AR app starts tracking all of those cards. And when one of them or both of them gets detected, then we add a plane to that image anchor at the position of the image. So that's when we end up with that see-through white panel that's flush with the card. Now, if there's two cards that get detected, then they both get a white panel or a plane added to it. If the image that was detected is the Eevee card, then we create a scene using ev.scene and we add it onto the plane. Now, if the image that was detected was the Oddish card, then we add our Oddish scene to the plane. And because we've set our maximum number of tracked images to 2, then we can now simultaneously track movements and locations for 2 images. So this should now fulfill all our requirements, and let's run our app to see if it does indeed work. Okay, so here's our app running, and let's just flip over one of these cards. There's Eevee and there's Oddish. And I can move them around, I can rotate them, I can lift them up off the ground, I can move them around, and at the same time I can have both of these guys on the screen and moving. So they could be attacking each other or something like that. So I hope you had fun building this project along with me, and I hope this project has inspired you to create some awesome things using ARKit and SceneKit. Now, I look forward to hearing all about the amazing, incredible things that you guys are building. So be sure to hit up the team at robots@londonappery.com if you build something fantastic and you want to be entered into the monthly student app selection that will go out in the newsletter to all of our students worldwide. So in the next module, we're going to be looking at how we can start playing video when we track and recognize images in AR. So we're going to be building the interactive Harry Potter style newspapers where everything on the page comes alive. So for all of that and more, I'll see you on the next module.